So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Nick Mitchell. I'm one of the SolidWorks account managers here at CAD Micro Solutions, and joining me on this session today is Ryan Beach. He's one of our senior SolidWorks application specialists, and he's going to be taking us through our technical presentation today. So we've set aside about a half an hour for this session, and the purpose of this meeting is to go over some of the major changes that happened to our network or floating licenses in 2019 and 2020. Some of you may already have a SolidWorks network license, or some of you may be considering adding a network license to your existing SolidWorks pool. So we wanted to address some of the common questions that we've been receiving from our clients, and hopefully after the session, you guys will have a little bit more information than you did before you attended in order to make some good decisions moving forward for your company. So before Ryan gets started, I just wanted to take the time to just go over some of the biggest changes that happened to our network license environment in 2019. The first being home use licenses. For those of you who have already been using a network license, some of you may have enjoyed home use licenses. Previously, before VPNs and servers were prevalent on the market, SolidWorks gave home use licenses to companies to allow their engineers or their designers to continue working at home, offline, or after hours. However, those licenses have now been discontinued. So for those of you using home use licenses, you may have already noticed that those licenses will no longer work. With a VPN, the internet, you can still log into your network and check those licenses out, however, and network licenses can be checked out for almost up to, I think it's 30 days. 30 days you can check them out, so your engineers or designers can continue to work at home if need be. The other major change that took place in 2019 regarding network licenses was a price increase. Basically, SolidWorks and Dassault Systems made this change at headquarters, and it's in an effort to keep in line with industry standards. So should anybody have any questions or concerns regarding those price changes, please feel free to reach out to your account manager to discuss the details. They'll be happy to review those with you as well. Last but not least, we wanted to remind everybody that all SolidWorks assets that are hosted by a network need to be on subscription and have the same expiration date. Any assets that fall off of subscription that are on the network cannot remain on the network. So again, if you have any additional questions or concerns about this particular subject, please feel free to reach out to your account manager and they'll be happy to provide additional information on that. And so with that said, I'm going to pass the mic over to Ryan Beach. He is going to take it from here and review the agenda for the session today. And we'll be following up with a follow-up email, so please look out for that after the session. And I'm just going to go ahead and pass that over to Ryan, okay?
Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Beach. As Nick said, I'm one of the senior application specialists here at CAD Micro Solutions. For the purpose of going through network licensing, I know this can be a bit of a dry topic, so I'm going to try and keep this short and to the point and try and cover, as what said, everything you need to know. So first thing I want to go over is what is network licensing? So the idea is that it's floating licenses within your company. It's a seamless process that pulls the product or products as you launch SolidWorks, which I would now like to lead in by asking, for example, like what are some of the advantages of network licensing? And one example of this would be if you had, say, 5 full-time engineers, let's say they're all using standalone licenses right now, and they have, you have like a one simulation standard, for example. You know, I have to ask that one person who has your simulation standard, hey, can you deactivate your machine so I can now activate with my SolidWorks Premium to use that simulation? Whereas with network licensing, you can have that seat just floating, so everyone automatically pulls the lowest priority seat, which starts at a standard. And as someone wants to do a simulation, person A, for example, just simply loads the simulation add-in, and they can run the simulation. Now, once they close that add-in down again, it frees up that license, and then the next person is able to use that license. So, with that out of the way, next thing I'd like to go over is how to add licenses to your network. So for this part, it's going to be sort of slideshow based, but this will also be provided afterwards too. What you want to do is you want to go to your control panel. You're going to look for your Solid Network License Manager. This will be the server, just to clarify as well. So there's the client side, which is what pulls the license. Then there's the server, which is what actually holds your licenses. So in this case, on your license server, you're going to click on Change. And then it's gonna bring up this thing, welcome to your Solid Network License Manager setup. Click on next, you click on modify, and here you want to enter in your serial number or numbers. So this would be, for example, if you had, say, SolidWorks PDM, you had electrical, and you had simulation or inspection, for example, you would add in each of those serial numbers with a comma, one after another. And typically, those serial numbers will be a 9010. So if you're not sure if you have a network license or not, it'll usually be a 9010 number, just for that. And then once you've added in your serial numbers, you're going to hit install, and that'll add in those serial numbers. And that's both just for like adding numbers and for installing the actual license manager as well. So next step is you want to make sure that you're going to actually activate those additional serial numbers. So what you're going to do is you're going to open up that Solid Network License Manager server. You're going to look for server administration, and this is the tab, and I want to highlight this right now with my cursor. This is what's different between the client and the server, is that the server will have this extra tab right in here. And so what you want to do is you want to click on modify, and then you click on activate, reactivate, and you're going to check firewall on the computer, and then this will be the name of your server. And then we're going to say select all for all of your licenses within here. Click on next. And then when you're done, you should see all of your licenses in here and your total count of your licenses within here too. And next thing I would like to mention as well too is to make sure that you click on start on your license server. So if it doesn't say anything off the bat, I sometimes will say, hey, just hit stop and then hit start again, and that ensures that it's been refreshed and you are indeed going to be pulling the new licensing information. This won't kick anybody off your existing network as well too. Everyone can keep working during this process. Now, another thing I would like to briefly cover and mention is options file. So this would be where if you want to have like a timeout session where if the person, let's say, opened up PDM, they walked away from the computer for an hour and they're holding on to this license, which they're not using, by default, SolidWorks will not kick that person off of that license. So by having an options file, for example, you can set it up to set a timeout of say an hour, 15 minutes, or whatever you'd like. And you'll be able to set, say, like a timeout of 3,600 minutes for, say, PDM contributor, and you can kick the person out. I've also provided a couple of links here too for more information. One's a general overview of a SolidWorks blog, and the other one's like a detailed guide of the actual FlexLM license user guide as well too. So in case somebody really wants to dive deep into the options file, the information is there for you. Now, next thing I'd like to go through is common troubleshooting steps. Typically with the license manager, there isn't too much which can go wrong with it. It's fairly straightforward, but we still get some questions fairly often, so hopefully this will help. So first one would end up being, hey, make sure that your license manager server is newer or in the same version as your license manager client. So if you have a client, say, updated here SolidWorks to 2020, but your license server is still in 2019, you will need to update your license server up to 2020 as well. And now next is the firewall on your server and client. So you want to make sure that the ports 25734 and 25735 are opened up for TCP and UDP on the inbound and outbound for both domain and private. And finally, the last detail to check as well is double check that the client name is connecting to the right server name. Sometimes you might have the server typed in incorrectly, and that might be why it's not pulling the license. And I've got one extra bonus in here as well too, which is for those of you who have been active throughout this presentation at the very end, I will be sending out a batch file that will allow you to open up all of the Solid Network license ports with PowerShell. So instead of having to do it manually, for those who have been active through this presentation, we'll be getting this bonus file too, just to make it a little bit easier for those who are the administrators and have to add those. Okay. So finally, I've got just some Q&A questions that I think have come up here. So first question that I can see is, licenses are not available. So maybe, for example, somebody has opened up their license, they're trying to pull a seat, and it says license is not available. So what I would typically recommend and suggest is to open up the License Manager client and to see, and I'll even pull it up on my screen right now, and you want to check to see how many licenses are available. So just give me a second here while I load this up and drag this over. And you'll notice on here how mine's currently going to my machine, and it says I've got total licenses 5. In this case, I've got 5 free total. But this is what you want to be checking, and make sure you select in here your product as well too. For example, PDM CAD editor or whatever else it might be. Now, I do see another question here as well too, and that is the license is available but not being pulled. So if it's the case of where it's pulling the incorrect priority for you, there are a couple of options. One option is, again, to use the options file and to manage it via groups. The other way is to go into your license order, and you can change the license order around to move, say, the priority up, for example, in here. And that should help to make sure that you're pulling the correct license that you're expecting. And one final note too is, with your Network License Manager, by default, it will always pull a SolidWorks standard license. And then let's say, for example, again, if someone loads up a toolbox, it then will pull the professional functionality, and then SolidWorks will then be in a professional mode. But by default, if anyone's saying, hey, I have a SolidWorks Premium, but it's saying a standard, is this by default? SolidWorks always starts as loading standard first, and then it goes to the required categories necessary. So, thank you everyone for your time. Okay, I'm going to pass this back over to Nick.
Well, thank you, Ryan. That was riveting, informative, and very succinct. I think everybody's going to appreciate that and get back to their afternoon. So just to summarize again, just to hit those key points again, home use licenses have been discontinued. If your home use licenses have stopped working, please feel free to reach out to your account manager to find out more information about how we can pull those licenses from the VPN and how we can check out those licenses for 30 days if need be. The price changes that would come along with the network licenses as well. I think it's important to mention that for the SNL, the SolidWorks Network license, that is still a one-time fee, and that SolidWorks Network license will hold any and all of your SolidWorks assets at the company, okay? Associated software and maintenance costs have also gone up for networked licenses. So again, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to your account managers and get a little bit more information on that moving forward. And again, for those of you who have existing network licenses, all of your networked assets need to have the same expiration date and have to be on subscription. If they fall off of subscription, they can no longer be on the network, and there are obviously some, admin fees that go along with that. So again, questions or concerns, reach out to your account manager and they'll fill in the blanks. With that said, I think our team will be following up with an email with some additional information on there. And I do think that we're getting another question actually. So you know what, before I sign off with you guys officially, I'm just gonna go ahead and pass the mic over to Ryan. I think it's a pretty relevant question. 1 second.
Yeah, so I just saw another question come in here through with another one of our customers, and he mentioned VPN. So I won't be going into the details of how to VPN, as that will be different as per every person's network. But if you do want to, for example, let's say work remotely or whatever else, you can set up a VPN, talk with your network IT manager, and you can use that, for example, to log in and then borrow a license. And that actually leads into the second question, which is how to borrow a license and for how long. So under your license manager client, assuming you're already moded in, for example, I can now pick this, say this manage viewer license, and I can choose to say I want to borrow until, I don't know, let's say Friday, for example. So I'll pick the end date, and click on borrow, and now I've got this license held locally on my machine until the 31st of January, and then at which point it'll be automatically returned. So that, again, that'll allow you, if you are using a remote, like a VPN, for example, you can VPN with your cell phone, pull the license, disconnect from the internet, and now you've got that license stuck locally in your machine until the end date. Again, thanks everyone for your time, and we'll be sending you a follow-up email with the presentation and that script file. Thanks.